I spent hundreds on gifts for my nieces and nephews, but their mom said I was embarrassing for not spending more, so I decided to ruin their lives forever. Now, they're begging me to stop. Ever since I was a kid, my parents drilled it into me that when I grew up, I'd have to provide for them, so my dream of earning more money always came with the idea of showering my family with gifts and love. I worked hard in school, paid over half the rent as a teenager, but I never even got a real thank you from my parents. Deep down, I think I sensed something was off, but I wanted their approval so badly that I just shoved it to the back of my mind. Jump to now, I'm 28, and when last Thanksgiving rolled around, I was actually feeling good for the first time in years. I managed to buy gifts for everyone: my parents, my sister Emma, her husband Joe, and their 3 kids. I even bought extras so the kids wouldn't fight over who got what, plus more in case anyone brought unexpected guests. I convinced myself this was how things were supposed to feel, but then the bomb dropped. I arrived at my parents' house with my car full of presents, and when I knocked, my mom answered. I expected a hug, or at least a simple hello, but instead, she hit me with, "We think it's better if you don't join us this year." I honestly thought she was joking and even started to laugh, but then Emma yelled from the living room, "This isn't a gathering for cheapskates. You've become a real drag lately." I just stood there, stunned. My dad hovered in the background, silent. Mom looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her, and Emma looked downright pleased. I stared at her, blank, while my body cycled through confusion, rage, humiliation, everything. But I just nodded and said, "All right, if that's how everyone feels," before turning around and sitting in my car, alone, surrounded by a pile of unwanted gifts. They called me a cheapskate, a drag. Where was this coming from? A terrible gut feeling washed over me, and I had this nagging suspicion that Emma was behind it, but I couldn't figure out why. So, I did what I always do in these situations and asked myself, if I were my own brother-in-law, what would I think of Emma? Would I appreciate myself? Instantly, my mind filled with memories of helping with their kids' extracurricular fees, chipping in for their vacation fund when money was tight, and even covering part of their house down payment. That gave me a clear answer. Hell yeah, I'd appreciate myself. That's when I let myself get angry, really angry, enough to decide this wasn't over, and enough to march back up to their front door. They were still there, my parents whispering like they were surprised I hadn't just left, and Emma sprawled on the sofa, scrolling TikTok with the volume up. I walked straight in. "What's going on here? Why am I suddenly unwelcome?" Emma smirked, not even looking up. "You think we haven't noticed you've been slacking? Even the kids know they've barely gotten anything from you in months." Honestly, I'd have preferred she slapped me than said that crap, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. "Are you kidding? I have hundreds of dollars worth of presents for your kids in my car right now," but she cut me off. "I don't want to hear it. A few years ago when they were born, you did way more. It's honestly embarrassing." I turned to my parents hoping for support, but Mom just gave me an awkward half smile and said, "She's got a point, honey. You just leased that new truck. You found money for that." For a second I was speechless. "The truck is financed," I replied, trying to stay calm. "And even if I paid cash, how does that make me responsible for Emma's family? They're not my kids." "You make twice what Joe does," Emma interrupted, lounging back like we were talking about the weather. "We're family. Family helps each other." I glanced at Joe, who sat silently in the corner. "So let me get this straight," I said. "Because I've been generous before, I'm now obligated to keep giving forever, and if I don't, I'm a cheapskate?" Emma shrugged. "If that's how you want to see it." That was my breaking point. I stepped back and shook my head. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here." I looked at my parents. "Enjoy your Thanksgiving." I walked out without waiting for a reply. The drive home was tense, my knuckles white on the wheel. I almost wanted to believe I was the villain, like there was no way I was just suddenly not welcome at Thanksgiving because I hadn't given enough. When I got home, I sat in my driveway for a long time just staring at the gifts I'd spent hours wrapping, because those bags made me feel sick now. The more I thought about it, the clearer it all became. This had been building for years. Thanksgiving was just the breaking point. Emma had always leaned on me financially. When she and Joe first married, they struggled with money. Joe bounced between jobs, and Emma's part-time work barely covered basics. I stepped in thinking it was temporary, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, but temporary turned into years. In a way, I guess it was my fault. I made it too easy for Emma to depend on me, and somewhere along the way I created a monster. Tonight was my wake-up call. I knew I had a choice to make. After thinking it over, I realized there was only one answer. No more rescuing Emma and Joe. No more endless gifts to make up for their financial irresponsibility. I was done. If they wanted their kids to have what I'd been providing, they could figure it out themselves. Cutting off my sister wasn't easy. It meant possibly damaging my relationship with her, her kids, and maybe my parents. But I couldn't keep being treated like an ATM instead of a brother and uncle. I didn't reach out to anyone, and no one contacted me either. I thought maybe they got the message, but I should have known Emma wouldn't let it go. The silence lasted through Christmas and New Year's. No calls, no texts, nothing. For the first time in forever, I spent the holidays alone. I didn't expect them to reach out, but it felt strange when the ball dropped at midnight and my phone stayed silent. I won't lie. I thought about calling a few times, but whenever I picked up my phone, I remembered Emma's smug face and her words, gathering for cheapskates. I'd been their safety net for years, and they had the nerve to treat me like I was disposable. No thanks. By mid-January, things started to shift. Joe had always been quiet and avoided confrontation, but one night, I got a text from him out of nowhere, just wanted to say I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I don't agree with what happened. Emma won't listen to me, but I thought you should know. I stared at my phone for a long time, unsure how to reply. Part of me appreciated that someone in the family saw the injustice, but Joe had sat there silently that night, and his apology now felt lacking. I finally replied, "Thanks for saying that, Joe, but this isn't something I can just brush off." He didn't push it, which was fine by me. Then, in early February, Emma showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was on a video call when I heard aggressive knocking. I tried to ignore it, but it kept going. When I finally answered, there was Emma, looking frazzled and annoyed. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me before I could object. I crossed my arms. "What's this about?" She didn't waste time. "You need to stop this childish behavior and start helping out again." I laughed in disbelief. "Helping out? You mean financing your life? I told you I'm done with that." She glared. "You're the one with money to spare. Do you know how hard it's been for us since you decided to throw this tantrum? The kids barely have what they need. Joe's struggling to keep it together, but we can't manage without your help." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you listening to yourself? You're a grown woman, Emma. You have a husband and kids. If you need more money, get better jobs. It's not my job to solve your problems. You've always helped before," she snapped. "Why are you being so stingy now?" "Stingy?" I echoed. "You want to talk about stingy? Let's talk about how you lied to our parents about me, turned them against me, and banned me from Thanksgiving because I supposedly wasn't generous enough with your kids. And now you're here asking for more. That takes some nerve." She started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "We're done here. I'm not giving you another penny, and I don't want to hear from you again until you learn how to act like an adult." She stood there fuming, then finally stormed out. After Emma left, I thought that would be it for a while. She'd sulk, maybe complain to our parents, but eventually realize I wasn't backing down. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually answer those, but something told me I should. "Hello, is this Alex?" a woman asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Patricia Wilson. I'm an attorney. I represent a client who's raised concerns about certain financial matters involving your family. Do you have a moment to discuss this?" I froze. "An attorney? What financial matters?" "I can't go into specifics over the phone," she said, "but it involves financial contributions you've made to your sister, Emma, and her family, particularly the use of those contributions. Would you be willing to meet at my office?" My mind raced. Had Emma taken out loans in my name? Was she using my info for something illegal? Or was this just another desperate attempt to guilt me into giving her money? "Who's your client?" I asked. There was a pause. "I can't disclose that right now, but you're not being sued. This is more of an informational meeting." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I couldn't shake the feeling there was more going on than just Emma being entitled. When I walked into Patricia Wilson's office the next day, she dropped a bombshell almost immediately. "My client is Joe," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. I blinked in surprise. "Joe? Why would he need a lawyer?" Patricia watched me carefully. "He believes Emma has been misusing the money you've given them over the years. He has evidence she's been hiding funds from both of you." My stomach dropped. "Hiding money? What do you mean?" She opened the folder showing bank statements, receipts, and screenshots of texts. "Joe suspects Emma has been diverting your financial contributions into a separate account. Based on these records, she's been using the money for online shopping sprees and secret spa weekends, not family expenses." I stared at the documents in shock. "You're telling me all those times I helped with bills and the kids' needs, that money never went to them?" Patricia nodded. "That seems to be the case. Joe discovered this recently and came to me because he wasn't sure what to do. He was hesitant to involve you, but after recent events, he felt you deserved to know." I couldn't believe it. Emma had been playing me all along, taking money I thought was helping her family and blowing it on herself. I felt angry, betrayed, and stupid for not seeing it sooner. Does Joe have solid proof? I asked. Patricia nodded and pushed the folder closer. See for yourself. I flipped through the documents, finding transfers from my account to their joint account that matched times I'd helped with emergencies. Then there were withdrawals to a separate account in Emma's name only. Transactions from that account showed expensive online shopping, spa retreats, and even a weekend getaway with someone named Jen that Joe knew nothing about. Unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. And Joe just found out? He only discovered the separate account recently, Patricia explained. He had suspicions for a while, but didn't have access to her private banking info until he accidentally opened mail addressed to her. That's when he contacted me. I sat back, trying to process it all. Does he want me to do something? Press charges? Patricia shook her head. Not at this stage. He's more concerned about protecting himself and the kids, but he wanted you to know in case Emma tries to manipulate you again. I laughed bitterly. Well, she already tried. She showed up at my place demanding I start helping again. Patricia nodded. That matches what Joe told me. It seems Emma is feeling the pressure now that your financial support has stopped. She may be in deeper trouble than Joe realizes. I stared at the folder, my thoughts racing. Part of me wanted to confront Emma right away, but another part knew that would just give her more attention. Instead, I asked, "What's Joe planning to do?" Patricia hesitated. He's weighing his options. He wants to make sure he and the kids are protected, financially and otherwise. If Emma's behavior escalates, he may file for separation. That hit me harder than I expected. Joe had always seemed like the quiet, loyal type who'd stick with Emma through anything. If even he was thinking of leaving, things must be worse than I thought. I called Joe that night. Our conversation was awkward at first, but it quickly got deeper. I should have said something that day at your parents', he admitted. I've never been good at standing up to Emma, but that's no excuse. Why now? I asked. Why come forward about the money after all this time? There was a long pause before he answered. The kids deserve better than this. I deserve better. And honestly, so do you. After everything you've done for us, whatever you decide to do next, you have my support. I told him thank you. He replied quietly, and I'm truly sorry about Thanksgiving. You didn't deserve any of that. We talked for a while longer, and when we hung up, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. Emma had burned her bridge with me, but Joe and the kids, they weren't my enemies. If he was brave enough to stand up to her, I wouldn't hold a grudge against him. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma wasn't done causing trouble. A few weeks later, I got a text from Joe. We're leaving this weekend. I called him right away, and he explained that he and the kids were moving to his parents' place in another state while Emma was visiting a friend, which I now suspected was code for another shopping spree. He was packing their essentials and taking the kids. He didn't want Emma to know where they were going until he had legal protection in place. I just can't keep pretending everything is normal, he said quietly. The kids see more than we think. What about moving expenses and getting set up? I asked, genuinely concerned. There was a pause before he reluctantly said, I was hoping you might help with that, just until I get my first paycheck at the new job. I hate asking after everything. Say no more, I interrupted. I've got you covered. Just tell me what you need. I ended up helping Joe and the kids relocate, but for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I was being used. It felt like I was finally supporting something positive. Emma, predictably, went ballistic when she found them gone. She called me, screaming that I'd turned Joe against her and destroyed her family. I let her rant for a minute before calmly saying, maybe if you spent less time shopping and more time being a mother and wife, this wouldn't have happened. But hey, good luck with that. Then I hung up. Joe is doing well now. He's found a decent job, the kids are adjusting to their new school, and he's finally starting to regain his confidence. As for Emma, I hear she's still blaming everyone but herself. My parents finally learned the whole story and have apologized profusely for taking Emma's side at Thanksgiving, but honestly, I'm just happy to be free of the obligation. Some family relationships are worth saving, others just drain you until there's nothing left.